This week on the Snap UK podcast, you've got the A-team of G-Lo, Johnny Thrash, Jim and 4th and Inches reviewing the NFC in its 4 divisions. Let's do this!
Hi, it's John here with 4th and Inches, and we're starting with NFC East. So should we start with Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, I think they're a team that have the most newsworthy.
It's seemingly all about Zeke at the moment. He was spotted on a plane back from Cabo the other day, Mexico. Whilst preseason was on, Tony Pollard is out there taking reps and making Jerry Jones say, Zeke who?
I sincerely doubt it. You know, out of all the players they say they should be paying, for me, you pay Zeke.
Zeke's the player Zeke first, the rest. I mean, we'll get on to Dak, but yeah. I mean, the team without Zeke it's a shell.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at just the depth. I mean, there's some teams where Tony Pollard's an unknown quantity. I agree. I don't think he's going to be the new Zeke because I don't like saying the new anyone.
Not anymore.
No,
we don't do that this year.
No, we don't. But you saw what happened with the Steelers with James Conner. But that was James Conner who had a season to sit behind first, understand the team, then come in.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm sure this is all just posturing. I think Jerry Jones, he wants Zeke. I'm sure he'll get paid. The thing is, the more Zeke holds out,
the fatter he becomes.
Yeah. So, about 3 weeks ago, I was like thinking, if I get a good early pick, I'm going for Zeke. And as it happened, I have not got a good early pick. And,
I've got the first one, and I'm going to ruin it by probably picking some quarterback.
But Zeke, he just probably won't be ready. He probably won't be game ready until week 3 or 4 because he comes back heavy.
I'd still take a slightly heavy Zeke over a lot of running backs in the league.
Oh, yeah. But should we move on to Dak?
So, a lot of people tell me, stats-wise, Dak is fantastic.
He's always comparable to Russell Wilson after his first fall. He's not as good as Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson played in 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah. Stats can prove anything. I'd rather have Russell Wilson.
There's a reason Russell Wilson's the highest paid quarterback in the league, and
Dak just wants to be.
Yeah, I think for me, the team needs Zeke more than it needs Dak. You saw how Dak panicked without Zeke, without the running back that he could hand off to. It is just seeming to be, I'm going to overthrow everyone.
Yeah, it's I'd worry for them more without Zeke than without Dak. So, I mean, if you can get $40 million from Jerry Jones, then I'm all for it. Rinse that old guy dry. But he's not getting that surely.
It's just very, very strange for me. I just think he's not the player he's demanding financially.
No. Amari Cooper as well. He's in contract year.
Doesn't seem that smart a trade now, does it?
He's still better than... Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's not moaning about his helmet, is he?
No, there is that.
They've added to the wide receivers this year, so they've also got Randall Cobb,
which I think is a great pickup. Okay, he wasn't great for the Packers last year, but you saw the quality he's shown in previous seasons. He's an option, and for me, he's a better option than Cole Beasley.
Yeah, well, sadly, Cole Beasley, he's gone, hasn't he? I don't know where he is now.
I think is he at the Bills, possibly? He's at the Bills, yeah.
He's at the Bills, just rapping somewhere. But yeah...
I think it's also, you've got Michael Gallup.
Michael Gallup, yeah.
Who I think is a very strong option. For this, I still, assuming you get these 3 players, this is still a very good quality team. This is a team that can easily make the playoffs.
They've brought Witten back.
And
is that just as big of a cry for help as it seems, or?
And they got rid of 3 touchdowns in one game, Swain. That's the thing that upset me more than anything.
I mean, he has moved on, but it's fine. I mean, for Dallas,
doesn't make it hurt any less.
It's all about the defense, isn't it? Really, Van Der Esch was very impressive last year.
He was, yeah, and I think you've still got some amazing players there. Your DeMarcus Lawrence, and you've got players that would fit into any team. I just think there's the thing that's always kind of worried me with the Cowboys is when you look at that team, you've got this fantastic vehicle with a terrible driver.
Is the coach the weak link here?
I just think he's had long enough there.
Fair enough. I mean, last year, my early season prediction was that he'd be the first one fired.
And I think he would have been fired.
And he was
had Alex Smith not broken his leg.
I was very close to getting that one right, and he seemed to be going week to week because they were like losing, winning, and as soon as Smith broke his leg and the skins just went off the cliff, it helped. That really saved his job. He stayed, of course, and I do worry. Saying that, I do worry. Not enough that I still think these are getting into playoffs. Maybe not as division leaders, but
no, I know we're jumping the gun a little bit. I think the Eagles are the strongest team in the division.
Yeah, but I still think this
is a team that could make the playoffs.
Yeah,
I said before.
Zeke could be back. They have an easy game week 1 against at home against the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their first 3 games. Week 4, they've got the Saints, which let's see what happens. But to have the Giants, the Redskins, and the Dolphins, you could easily come at that 3-0.
Yeah,
and that gives you the confidence.
And by then you'll have a fit Zeke.
Yeah, and you've got a fit Zeke going in against the Saints, and that's
you never know.
That's what you want.
So should we move on to the Eagles?
Yeah. So they've got a lot of players coming back from injury, and I think last year wasn't representative of the team that won the Super Bowl.
No, they had their defense was decimated by injury last year.
Yes.
When we went to see them,
you realise how much their fans annoy you. That's the first thing.
We fell out with their fans, but we also saw just how decimated their defense was, the secondary in particular. So Wentz is back.
Carson Wentz. That's what you say. Don't make it properly this season.
So Foles has gone as his backup. So when eventually Wentz gets injured, as has happened 3 years in a row, instead you're looking at Nate Sudfeld, Cody Kessler, or Josh McCown.
All quality options.
They really like Nate Sudfeld, so I'm guessing it's going to be Sudfeld at 2, and I'm guessing McCown at 3.
Yeah, you would. Oh, I know he's been known to kind of coach quarterbacks, hasn't he?
I think he is now in as a sort of a player coach sort of role. Did you know that he retired before and he'd earned $18 million? Since he unretired, he's earned 25. He's earned more since he retired and come back than So he's doing something right because he was awful last year when he did play.
But that was for an awful team.
It was for an awful team. But I don't think we'll be seeing him on the pitch. He is going to be there as the coach for these two younger quarterbacks.
I think the thing that I like with the Eagles is Jordan Howard coming in.
Yeah.
They didn't really replace London-born J.J.
No.
And I think whilst they've had the kind of committee running back stable, Jordan Howard comes in for me clearly as RB1.
He's clearly the lead back now that out there. They have a lead back now.
Yeah. You've still got Corey Clement, Wendell Smallwood,
Josh Adams.
Yeah.
Darren Sproles is back to
sit on a bench,
punt return.
Be really small.
Yeah. They've also brought in they brought Deshaun Jackson back,
which I thought was brilliant. The fans love him.
Yeah. Alshon Jeffrey, still the lead receiver out there, isn't he?
Or Zach Ertz, technically.
Means that, yeah.
Which I think, because of the amount of yards tight ends were getting last season, because of Kittle, because of Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
I think Ertz kind of, I'm not saying he doesn't get the recognition he deserves. He's still well regarded, but I think he's still easily one of the best tight ends in the league.
He'll have Wentz back, and he's Wentz's go-to guy. They've also got Dallas Goedert, who looked all right.
Yeah, he's probably one of the best tight end twos in the league.
I was listening to Around the NFL earlier, and they were asking the question of, why isn't Kaepernick coming joining this team? And you're just like, oh no.
I think that question should be banned.
Well, I think so. We'll say it now. We're not going to mention that. But if he was going to be in a joiner team, he'd be an ideal fit here. But they've lost Bennett.
I still think this is, assuming they get players fit, still one of the best defenses in the league.
Oh yeah,
you've got, to be honest, any defense with Fletcher Cox he's phenomenal.
Yeah, there's they're able to rotate the line so they keep fresh. At the back, they'll have Malcolm Jenkins back.
Jalen Mills.
He's physically unable to perform at the moment, but I imagine he'll be back soon. Bradham, all these players. It's the team that won the Super Bowl effectively. Yeah. I'm calling it early. I think these guys win this division.
I mean, as a Giants fan, we're both Giants fans, obviously it's kind of disappointing to say the Eagles will do well, but they are. I agree with you. They're the best team in this division by far.
Yeah. So we move on to work out who's the worst. Because let's do the skins first.
So before we go into anything else, the draft picks.
Oh yeah.
People seem to be undecided on this, don't they? Some people are saying, they did brilliantly to get Sweat and Haskins in the first round. There's a reason people kind of wavered on Haskins.
We're not going to be able to we're not be able to say for sure until he's in. He's looked all right in pre-season. He looks like a young quarterback, effectively. So we don't know yet.
But does he look like absolutely nailed on to beat Case Keenum to QB1?
I don't think he will. I think Keenum starts.
I agree.
I think from what I'm hearing as well, it looks like that's going to be the case. Colt McCoy has had a sort of... He tried to come back early after his leg break. He almost tried to come back before the end of last season. And I think he's since been he's had 2 surgeries since then. I think the jury's still out on Haskins because we haven't seen him.
We haven't seen enough.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not Danny Dimes, is he? Come on.
but
I refuse to call him that after this ever again.
Montez Sweat, as you know, he'll be all right.
But once again, there's a reason. Okay, there was possibly a heart condition, wasn't there?
Yeah,
but I think Darius Geis coming back is a benefit because Peterson's looked okay in the one bit of highlights I've seen from him in pre-season.
Yeah,
but you notice it's all kind of worded in a very strange way. It's kind of like, he can still do it at 96 years old.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame he's absolutely broke and needs the money because, I mean, it's just you hope every season he's going to be all right because it's a legacy tarnished. If not,
I still think he's still going to go down as one of the best running backs of all time.
And they need to because Pirine is rubbish.
Yeah. Chris Thompson's no better.
Chris Thompson, I mean, he's coming back from a horrible injury. Geis is coming back from injury. So, yeah, Peterson is the only one coming off a full season. At wide receiver, but it's still Doxson.
They've been poor at wide receiver for 3-4 years, haven't they?
Paul Richardson. They've lost Crowder.
Pronounce Crowder.
At tight end,
Jordan Reed
and Vernon Davis still keeps going.
Jordan Reed is someone who seems to have a very good reputation, but last season I thought he was absolute dross.
He you know, the second half of the season, they had a revolving door of rubbish quarterbacks. So it never doesn't help.
Yeah.
And I think that what isn't going to help this year is Trent Williams. He's not only failing to report. I don't think Gruden is able to talk to him. So not really sure what's going to happen. I mean, they're going to have to trade him. So we'll see. But
there's one thing they've done very well with this team, which is bringing in Landon Collins.
Yeah,
I think that's a great addition.
Yeah,
and he'll be sorely missed in New York. Sorely.
Well, yeah. He was never really the player that we thought he was gonna be, but he's still great. The thing that worries me is I've just noticed who one of their guards is. It's Eric Flowers.
Yeah, well, they're going to finish bottom of the division then, aren't they?
It's probably best that Haskins sits out for a bit and lets Keenum take them hits from the Flowers revolving door.
I was going to say that's just any team that looks at it and goes, you know what, Eric Flowers would be a great addition. Remember, that's the man who was drafted one position above Todd Gurley.
Oh, God, that's really depressing, isn't it? Depressing news. Reuben Foster, he's injured, but he's got a job.
The shining example of player conduct.
Yeah. I mean, Gruden must be.
It seems to be a little bit. I mean, not to the level of Marvin Lewis, but it does seem to be a case of, yeah, they're terrible. That's all right. Yeah, he's still the coach.
Yeah.
Do you know his brother won the Super Bowl?
It's all right. We're only circling the toilet yet. We're not fully in it. It's okay.
And it does seem to be this season, but don't worry, the Giants will be worse. That seems to be their ceiling for this season. As long as the Giants do worse, we're fine.
Yeah, and I'm sure he'll be there next year because they'll be ahead of the Giants again.
No, somebody who wants, had coffee with Sean McVay will be available, and
Yeah.
he'll likely come in. Or somebody who wants rode in an elevator with Sean McVay will be available, and he'll come in.
Actually, yeah, probably. Yeah. So, third or fourth in the division for the Redskins?
I'm a Giants fan, fourth.
I'm a Giants fan, third. We have to remember as well, like they were looking at a wild card until Smith broke his leg.
Yeah, and Smith still. I can beat Alex Smith in a foot race, and I'm fat as hell. So,
and they've got Keenum, who, I mean, he's all right. I mean, he's just meh.
He's a placeholder.
Yeah.
Jared Goff's going to be great. Well, yeah, just bring Keenum in. Dwayne Haskins could be good. Yeah, just bring Keenum in. Let's waste this season.
I mean, that's it. I think they'll just be fine.
Yeah, I think they're not going to be troubling for a wild card position this season. I think there's a little bit of transition there. You look at their schedule, so they're going to be 0-3.
Yep.
Eagles, Cowboys, Bears.
Three tough games to start with.
And if they're a team who go into game 4 with no confidence against the Giants, can end up 0-4.
I mean, do they play the Browns at all this year? I'm just thinking of Norman and Beckham, which has been quite a sort of highlight of the last few years.
They do not play the Browns apart from pre-season.
That's a shame, keeping them apart. Well, let's move on because let's not hold it off any further. The Giants.
Do you know what? Everybody seems to be saying how shite we are, and I think there's some positives. Okay, we lost one of the best wideouts in the league, and
yep.
But
Corey Coleman got injured.
I know. Problems occur.
Yeah.
You deal with them.
Yep. No, we've still got Saquon.
And we're going to cling on to him for dear life.
Yeah.
And when he tears his ACL game 1.
It's fine. We'll have Paul Perkins and Gorman. Now,
Jonathan Stewart's going to come back.
Oh, God.
It's all going to be okay.
Not that we have a running order, but the first thing on the running order is Griff has written, Daniel Jones has to start.
No, he doesn't.
No. It's pre-season. It's like playing MK Dons in the Carling Cup. It's
Carabao
not.
Cup.
There's no. It's no. Recollect. There's no. Yeah. It doesn't represent who you're going to be playing in the real game.
He's come out looking quite good from these pre-season games.
Yeah.
And to be fair, the Giants are stupid enough to throw him in and hope for the best. I mean,
no, they're not.
They screwed over Eli before.
Yeah, but that was that was a coach having one last power play in an attempt to keep his job, and it failed.
That power play was Geno Smith, John.
Oh yeah.
If your power play is Geno Smith, you're not winning the Super Bowl for the next 10 years.
It's true, but there is a. It's just no matter who's in charge, there's the cult of Eli in this club. So,
but there's also the possibility of replacement of Eli. It's
Yeah.
not Davis Webb. It's not Carl Aletta. We've made a statement. We've taken the second quarterback in the draft.
Yep.
He's looked decent so far. It could be the replacement for Eli, but Daniel Jones doesn't have to start.
But no, he doesn't have to start.
You're literally throwing
If you start him game 1, then you're just basically throwing him to the wolves. So yeah, no.
Yeah, we're playing the Cowboys.
Yeah.
So you're throwing an inexperienced quarterback against DeMarcus Lawrence and.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully Ingram's fit for this year because he wasn't for a lot of last year, which will be required at the start because Golden Tate is suspended.
Who needs wide receivers? You don't win games with wide receivers, do you, John?
No, we win it with a running back, and rarely do we win games.
We don't need wide receivers. Saquon catches the ball.
Yeah, it's fine. Can Saquon continue to be the lone workhorse?
Well, he bloody has to be, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's going to have to be.
There's no one else there. The cupboard's empty. I think that you look at some of the players we brought in. I think Dexter Lawrence is going to be some quality that we need.
Yeah. I mean, if Jabril Peppers,
I think he's a great player.
if he can be as the player that he's hoped to be, that'd be great. Well, but yeah, I think let's move on because we've got a lot to cover. So, can you predict a winning record for the New York Giants?
Can I hell?
No, me neither.
If we win more than 4, that's a start.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's a team in a rebuild. If you want in fantasy, I'd probably pick Aldrich Rosas.
Yes,
as a kicker because we're going to be kicking a lot.
Eli's not there to coach. Eli's not there to support. But if you're going to be sat at the learning tree, it's the guy who won the Super Bowl over the Patriots twice.
Yeah.
It's a guy who had posted over 4,500 passing yards in a season.
Yep, and won the Super Bowl. Only man to do it.
Exactly. He's not the player he was, but he's still he's a font of knowledge.
Yeah.
You might have to struggle to get it out, but
yeah.
I think genuinely, I'm not saying this with rose-tinted glasses as a Giants fan, I still think the Giants team's better than the Redskins.
Same as. It's but it's still
I can see Jim clearly agrees by the fact he's laughing out loud.
But I do think
your 49ers section's coming. Remember that.
So I'm going Eagles, Cowboys in the playoffs via the wild card. Redskins, Giants. Yourself, Paul?
Eagles, Cowboys, wild card. I agree with you. Giants, Redskins.
Cool. Well, let's move on to the NFC North.
Hi, Paul. So let's go with the NFC North.
Yeah, so if we're looking at this, we've got the NFC North, so let's start this off by having a look at the Bears.
Packers?
Oh, for God's sake.
Oh, Bears.
Let's start by looking at the Bears. So first thing that we have, I mean, they came off a great season last season. They really improved their defence, got to the playoffs, and Cody Parkey ruined it all.
That's a bit harsh, isn't it?
He did ruin it all.
Well, I know. But it's still a little bit harsh. It's a team sport, isn't it?
Yeah.
Should it really come down to one kick?
He ruined it for the team.
I know, but only a little bit. I think that's a bit harsh. I'm just not sure they were quite good enough last year, if I'm honest. If it hadn't have been that week, it'd have been the next.
Yeah, I don't think they were good enough to win the Super Bowl, but I think you look at this team now, in terms of where they are this season, Vic Fangio leaving is a bit of a loss.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, definitely.
I think they've still got some fantastic pieces there because you've still got Khalil Mack, you've still got Adrian Amos. You've got some fantastic defensive players, and you've got Roquan Smith, who is one of the best. I think he's one of the best young players, young linebackers in the league.
Well, so I think we've got to try and look at the Bears and understand whether they are a team that had a bounce back year last year, and that's kind of their peak. Have they done enough to improve, or are they a team that have built last year and added some key pieces and are going to keep building again? That's the question, I suppose. So that's the question I'm asking you, Paul.
Are we looking at them to see if they're the Jags of the year before?
I don't think they're the Jags. I don't think they've got wide receivers I've heard of. So they're not the Jags. Although they do have an ex-Jags wide receiver, don't they?
Alan
Robinson, who is off the back of an ACL injury. Is that correct? Well, he was out last year, wasn't he? No, he was in last year.
The year the Jags.
The last year's gone by in a bit of a blur, if I'm honest. So, but yeah, we've heard of him.
Taylor Gabriel's a decent option, quick as hell.
Yep.
And you've got Calvin Ridley's brother coming in as off the draft.
Yep. So I think to call them the Jags is, the Jags are a different beast. There's nothing like the Jags out there, I don't think, where they've just invested so heavily. They've gone for the Seahawks model almost, and they just never quite found that quarterback in the draft, or were never able to get the talent that Bortles has out of him. So it is different. They're not the Jags. I think they are slightly more balanced, but it's just whether that they have added enough pieces at some of the key areas. I don't know. I think Trey Burton's a good tight end as well. Tariq Cohen at running back, but it's whether there's enough around him.
You mentioned they're going for the Seahawks model, and the Seahawks model always had, it had Marshawn Lynch, it had at one point Eddie Lacy.
What about Taquan Mizzle Sr.?
He's one of my favourite name players in the league.
Do we know anything about him? I thought you were talking to me about him before, Paul, if you had some quite good details.
Yeah, he's 5'9", he's number 11, he's 194 pounds, he's in his third season and he went to Virginia.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So you're expecting big things?
No, I'm not. But you mentioned the Seahawks model. For me, looking at it, they've got running back by committee. Jordan Howard going is a big loss. So Tariq Cohen's great, but he's not... David Montgomery is a good prospect. He's a good prospect, but I still think he's not going to...
Probably helps if we talk to the people with the mics.
Yeah, it might help. David Montgomery is a decent prospect that they've drafted, but I still think Jordan Howard leaves a big hole there.
He leaves a big hole wherever he goes. But
yeah,
I think Tariq Cohen is obviously a good running back, but has he got the size you need? Has he got the durability for a whole season? I'm not so sure. And you need, I think, to get the best out of Trubisky. He's primarily a passing quarterback. He did run for a decent amount of yardage though last year, but I still think you don't really want a quarterback like Mitch Trubisky running all the time. Run when you need to run, but you want him passing the ball. So I think if that's any areas they would have wanted to improve better. Like I say, I think Trey Burton's. We've talked quite a lot. Tight end's a really difficult position in the league at the moment. It's a position where they suffer a lot of injuries. It's difficult to find good tight ends, and I think Trey Burton is. I don't think they've got much behind him. Ben Brownecker behind him, but I think Trey Burton, if he can stay fit, is a decent option. So I think they're a good team. The Bears. I think they'll probably perform reasonably similar to last year. It's just whether they can mix up their schemes and be as explosive as they were last year. Because I don't think they were expected to go kind of 12-4 last year. I think that was unexpected in that division.
Completely agree. Yeah, I think the interesting one for me is kicker, because they've got Eddie Pinheiro, and didn't they have tryouts where none of them could hit a 44-yard kick, which is what ruined Parkey.
Yeah. There's always other kickers on the waivers. I said it last week. I just think, we're just making a bit of a big deal out of it. They will keep trying one until they find one who can kick the ball through the post. I get how important it is to score those 3 points. You look at any sport where you can keep the scoreboard ticking over, it's massively important. But actually, they will find a kicker. We only need 16 kickers or 32 kickers. It's not. You don't need that many. Don't need that many kickers. In the world to kick the American football through the posts. I just think if we can't create kickers for the league for these 32 teams, there's a real issue, isn't there? Maybe I'm just being crazy. I don't know.
I think you see the difference that a good kicker makes. The Giants having Rosas, for example. He was fantastic. Got to the Pro Bowl, and that was kind of one of the shining lights of our terrible season at the Giants last season. You look at Gostkowski, he can sometimes have issues, but he's still been very reliable. He still keeps that position there. You look at Vinatieri at the Colts; they've never had that issue. Whereas, I think this is something that could affect the Bears. I think looking at the Bears, I think they've got some decent things in regard to offense. So you've got Anthony Miller coming into his second season. I thought he was decent last season. He's someone who can really make an impact at wide receiver. You've got Allen Robinson. For me, I still think they're a team that could make the playoffs happily.
Well, yeah, I didn't say anything different. I just think they're probably going to be like they were last year. I know Griff's not a massive fan of Trubisky. I think he thinks he's a bit bang average. I think he's a bit better than that. I think I don't think he has peaked yet. Griff's put on his little notey things. Has he peaked? I don't think so. But I am reading Griff, just so when you listen. But I don't think he has peaked yet. I think another couple of years and we'll see the best of him. And I think they're going to be competitive in most areas. So I think they'll be very similar to last year. I'm not sure that they'll, I don't know. I'm not sure they will win the division. I think the Vikings might have a chance, but they've definitely got a good chance of winning that division again. So, yeah, I think the Bears are still strong.
Yeah, my opinion, they'll still make the playoffs.
Okay. Packers next.
Yeah, so the Mike McCarthy era ended. Then we got LaFleur.
Matt LaFleur. So,
is this another one of those people who told them he knew McVay, so it's okay?
I think so. It's the new breed, isn't it? You see these generational changes in coaching, no matter what sport it is, whether it turns to a more attacking style of play. You've seen it in every type of sport. We had Wenger, then we had Mourinho in the Premier League.
From Mourinho you saw the Villas-Boases of the world.
Exactly, yeah. But they all very much came in the same sort of style. And it depends what gets success. At the end of the day, it's all based around success. If within 2 to 3 years, the Rams are so skint they have to get rid of all their best players and they haven't won a Super Bowl, then you might find that kind of approach starts to just kind of slip away again. I think it's his knowledge and his excitement and the energy he gives to his team that coaching, some of the teams are looking at coaches and going, these youngsters, these younger coaches, look at things in a different way. They look at sports science in a different way. Apparently Cole, Shanahan doesn't because he just injures all their players. But apart from that,
you're not bitter about it. That's the good thing.
No, we'll come on to that later, I believe. But the point is, I think they needed to freshen it up in Green Bay. That's essentially it.
Mike
it was
McCarthy
getting a bit stale.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a good thing to do. It's probably quite a brave appointment. Will he clash with Aaron Rodgers? Yes, probably.
Anybody would clash with Aaron Rodgers. But I think the interesting thing with this is kind of, I'm not going to say sink or swim for Rodgers because I still think he's got a fantastic career. He's still going to be well regarded. But this is an opportunity for them to do something. They really strengthened this team in the season. And they needed to.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, it's interesting to see because obviously we're heading into fantasy draft soon and we haven't touched on it much yet. And I think we'll probably start to talk about it a bit more next week, just kind of time allowing and everything. But, you start looking through some of the PPR results from last year and who was the best performers. And you get players like Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams that actually perform pretty well because there isn't much else in Green Bay. There's just not much there. You've got an injury, absolutely nothing.
A 38-year-old Mercedes
you've got
Lewis.
old Geronimo behind Devontae Adams, who I think is a decent player, but they just don't seem to be able to get much going in the scheme there. I don't think over the last kind of half of last year, they're just quite poor. And,
You've got some rookies who coming into their second season. So Equanimous St. Brown and Valdez Scantling, who showed some flashes of decency last season. So there's options.
Well, I think they've improved the defence, haven't they? That's been the key. And I think they've had to because gone are the days where you can just say Aaron Rodgers will win us 10 to 12 games a season. He won 6 games last season. He played all 16 games. The season before that, he played like 10 games, I think, didn't he? Something like that. But
after Anthony Barr fell on him.
Yeah, so the year before, Rodgers was injured. He didn't make the playoffs. The next year, Rodgers played every single game, didn't make the playoffs. It can't all be about Aaron Rodgers going forward. He's not at that point in his career. He's not delivering those numbers anymore in his career. So I just think the work they've done on defense has probably been quite important for them. People like Jair Alexander. I think he's a very good cornerback. They've got all sorts. They have invested for the first time in a long time in that defense. So that may well help them this year. Might help keep games close because how many times over the last 2 to 3 years has Rodgers had to win a game from 10 points,
One
14
leg.
points behind and on one leg. But
Yeah.
that's what they've been asking him to do, in effect, which is, you can't just keep doing forever.
Absolutely. I think, this is, and you've also got one of your favourite players, Rashawn Gary, coming into the defence.
I think he's a superb player, honestly. Comes from great stock. And, if you watched him on any of the series on, was it Netflix or Amazon Prime? I can't remember which one it was, but he's a bit of a beast. So I thought he was a good prospect. I thought he'd go pretty high in the draft, and I wasn't surprised to see him go high. I think he's a real talent. I think he's very athletic. I know there's some questions from Jim who likes to look at these technical things around some of his technique, but he's definitely seen as an athlete.
Yeah, so I think we've said that we feel the Bears are going to make the playoffs. Do we feel the Packers could possibly get a wild card?
Well, I think we'll come on to our predictions at the end, Paul, because that's what it says in the script.
Oh, you could do that, yeah. That also works.
Cheers, Paul. No, I don't know is the honest answer, and I need another 10 minutes to think about it because I didn't do any prep.
But I think, for me, they're an unknown quantity because they've had a lot of new players come into the team. You've got a new coach. That I think, for me, I couldn't really put a prediction together on this team until they've probably had 2 or 3 games. So you understand.
Take another 10 minutes and have another go. Right, Vikings. So, here we go. This is the contentious one. Are the Vikings going to bounce back to what they were in 2017-18 under the average Case Keenum, or are they going to have another struggle next year? Because essentially, there was a couple of major issues. One, they let Kirk Cousins get hit way too much, and the other one was they just didn't have an amazing. They had a massive stable of running backs, didn't they? But players like Dalvin Cook, how do they get them more involved? Because you've got to take the pressure off Kirk Cousins. You've got to protect him better with that O-line. And they drafted an O-lineman, didn't they? A centre to protect Kirk Cousins.
Garrett Bradbury, wasn't it?
Yeah, again, somebody that Jim loved. When we did our fantasy draft, Jim thought he was a great prospect. Because Jim does like a tight end and left tights, right tights, anything that's tight. Jim's quite a fan of. I know, I'm tired. So yeah, is Kirk Cousins the new Philip Rivers? Michael's put. Wow, was he tired when he wrote this?
He's just trying to upset you by saying Philip
He knew
Rivers,
I was going to
isn't he?
read that, didn't he? What do you think, Paul?
I think I'd like to go back to their running backs because Latavius Murray is a decent RB2. If Dalvin Cook gets injured, Latavius Murray can come in and take some of the load. I know, that's why I said he was a decent RB2. I was getting to the point, So he's gone, and they brought in Amir Abdullah.
They have brought in Amir Abdullah,
which is just a wet fart of a signing.
Well, he's a catching running back, isn't he? So they're obviously believing that Dalvin Cook is going to be the man. When you look at the rest of their offense that's around Cousins, if they can protect him and they can have enough of a mixed offense around him, they've got some real chances there. Diggs is a great player. You've got Thielen, who's a great player as well. I do think, Kyle Rudolph always delivers in December. There's all sorts of great players.
They've got Irv Smith Jr. from the draft as well, who looked half decent. So, yeah, I agree with you. They've got some weapons, and improving the O-line had to be the priority because, Cousins kept getting crushed.
Yeah. Do we think Thielen and Diggs are the best wide receiver duo combination in the league?
And it's the established one, yeah. If I was given the opportunity, I'd probably go for Beckham and Landry over anyone else.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're established. They've done well there for an established wide receiver duo. Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah,
I think they offer you different things as well, don't they? You got very different skill sets there as well. So I think that's definitely a positive for them. We know their defense is going to be strong. It's been strong for a number of years now. It's just around whether they can get that offense firing because. I think for the last 2 to 3 years, the defense keeps them in most games. So we saw that. I think it'd be interesting to see the number of points scored in the year where they made it to the championship game in the regular season versus the points they scored last year, going kind of 8 and 7. Because I bet you the drop off wasn't actually loads because they were in a lot of close games. Because because Kai Forbath was knocking over tons of field goals in the previous year. A really strong kicker, and that was definitely the case. So I don't think there's been a huge drop off in them last year. I think some of it was a bit situational, and I think you'll see them challenge the Bears for this division this year. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think the defense is strong. You've still got those great weapons. It says Danielle. I'm going to call him Danielle. I know it's Danielle Hunter, but it's spelt Danielle. I'm going to call him Danielle. You've got some, Xavier Rhodes at cornerback is still fantastic. They're a great team. So I don't see that. That's not unfair at all.
And then lastly, and we won't spend too long on them because they're not going to be great, I don't think. It is the Lions. I suppose a few questions. When does the coach get sacked? Is my first question. Is he going to be the first casualty of the year?
I mean, the first question I have with previewing the Lions is, why bother?
But does he get sacked?
He's going to get this season, isn't he?
I don't think so. No. I think he's gone after 6 games because I think they win 2 of them. If they're lucky. And I just don't think that it's a good fit. I just don't think it's worked. I think you can waste Matt Stafford soon if you do nothing there. I think he is a real talent. Has he ever been in a franchise that's fully ready to compete? I don't think so. You'd expect the Lions to have a half decent defense, but it's just not fired for years now. I love Golladay. I think he's a great player. I think he could be superb.
But who else is there?
There is nothing else there, is there? That's the issue.
You look at every other team in this division has stronger options. You look at the running backs there. Well, Kerryon Johnson was okay.
I think he's better than okay as well. I think they're both 2 young, good players. Both Kerryon Johnson and Kenny Golladay. I think they are both very good prospects. I think they've drafted quite well there. I think they're both quite good. You've got Marvin Jones as well at wide receiver. He did okay last year.
He's my fantasy secret weapon.
So I think there are people there to help them compete. But I just think that they're just always behind in every game by the end of the first quarter. They're just chasing games non-stop. I just think that they've got to be more competitive all round, and they've got to stay in games. They don't appear to me to have a competitive spirit as a franchise. They seem pretty forlorn as to what's going to happen to them most years.
And their schedule does nothing for them either. So their first 4 games are the Cardinals, the Chargers, the Eagles, and the Chiefs. They could end up, that would be 1-3.
Yep. So I don't see much improvement there, if I'm honest. So I think that they're going to be struggling. I think Patricia is gone. If I'm honest, I think he's got to be one of the candidates to go first this year. It's his second year. He did very little last year. If they don't see much progress, I think you could see Hugh Jackson in by Christmas. No, I'm joking. I am joking, but I just don't think that.
Don't use that name in vain.
Yeah. And Griff's put one of these wanky stats on here as well, saying 10th best D on yards per play conceded in 2018. But that means nothing, doesn't it? It means absolutely nothing. They lost all these games because they conceded all these points. So, that doesn't mean anything. Just means they're on the field a lot, losing 3 yards, 4 yards, 3 yards, 4 yards. It doesn't mean anything. It just means they're getting really tired, but they're still losing.
I'm going to take back everything I said about... I've gone onto their roster. I've made a mistake. They're going to be absolutely fine at running back. They've got 3-time Super Bowl playing 1,000-yard rusher CJ Anderson.
Wow. Okay. Well, I don't really want to talk about the Lions anymore, Paul. Do you?
I think... Let's put our heads together and let's predict this division.
So I think the Bears will just win it, and I think the Vikings may well get a wild card. Packers will miss out again. I think they might go 8-8, but I don't think it'll be enough. And then the Lions, I think it'll be very similar to last year. That would be me. So I'd go Bears, Vikings, Packers, Lions.
I'm going to go against you. I agree with the Bears. I think the Bears will win the division. They're still the strongest team. If anything happens to Dalvin Cook, the Vikings are buggered. So for me, I think the Packers are just a slight step above the Vikings. So I'm going Bears, Packers, Vikings, Lions.
Hi, so we're here. It's me with Jim here to talk about NFC South. Let's start with the Saints, 13-3 last year.
Solid season.
Yep, they were one call away from...
One terrible call away from the Super Bowl, and probably would have been a better Super Bowl with them in it.
Very much so. But there's not been much change with the team. The tight end has gone, and so has the running back Ingram.
Yep, so losing Ingram's a bit of a loss for them, but they've replaced him well with Latavius Murray. He's come in. Obviously, the offense is going to run more through, what's his name? Kamara,
yeah.
Pretty important player for them. And Michael Thomas, who between them had 23 touchdowns last year, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, he's signed a new deal to become the number one paid receiver, and
deservedly so.
Pretty
You
much,
can't
yeah.
doubt it.
Yeah. Griff's here says Drew Brees' arms seem to struggle in the last quarter. Has the decline begun? And I mean, he is.
Well, he's only a year younger than Tom Brady, isn't he?
He's probably 2 years.
2 years, is it?
Yeah.
He's certainly getting old. His contract runs out at the end of this year, and I think if they were to get to the Super Bowl, maybe not even win it, I think he'd probably call it a day after that.
He's got the records now, so he's not far off from just having them all.
I mean, he's a shoo-in to go into the Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah. Very much so.
He's got a Super Bowl ring.
The thing I think could be quite exciting this year is if the decline has begun, we're going to see more Taysom Hill. And that is fun because you never know what that guy is. Just a complete gadget player.
I think when you look at the coach, Sean Payton, he was one of the not originators, but like one of those young coaches who came in a good few years ago with a very offensive mind. He worked very well with Drew Brees. And that fashion's carried on with Sean McVay, and then a whole stream of young coaches being hired this year. Yeah. I think it's quite interesting the way they used Taysom Hill last year as like that gadget player who could run, throw, catch, just basically do anything. I think now you're going to start seeing Drew Brees probably not throw it as deep as he was, but he's still damn accurate, and he still can read a field very well. I don't think distance is a massive issue. When you've got players like Kamara whose yards after the catch are so good.
Yeah, no, I just look at that team. You just think more of the same this year.
Yeah, the only slight issues on the offensive line. So Max Unger, who was a centre, retired. They've drafted Eric McCoy to replace him. I mean, he is a rookie, but he came in from Texas A&M with a good reputation. And then on the defensive line as well, Marcus Davenport, who they traded up for last year in last year's draft. He got injured. He's starting to produce before he got injured. Whether he can carry on that alongside Jordan Cameron to try and get pressure on the opposing quarterback.
Yeah, they've got a tough start as well. They start Texans, Rams, Seahawks, Cowboys. So the first 4 games,
Yeah, but that game against the Rams, that's a revenge game if ever there was one.
Oh yeah. But then it gets a bit easier with the Bucks and Jags, but Bears, but then Cardinals. So it's it's as the schedule goes, it
It's
ups and
not too
downs.
bad.
Yeah.
One of the sneaky good off-season signings, Jared Cook going there.
Yeah.
He was good at the Raiders with kind of Derek Carr as a quarterback. He's now got Drew Brees as a quarterback. Brees hasn't had a decent tight end since Jimmy Graham left. Now, Cook's a good tight end. He played very well last year.
Well, yeah, and if the army's going, having Jared Cook, nearby is going to be a boon for him. So, yeah, no, the wide receiver behind Thomas, that
It's a bit of dross,
yeah,
but I kind of see Breeze as kind of a little bit like Brady in the fact that it almost doesn't matter who he's throwing to. The ball, he's such an accurate passer that, Ted Ginn gives him a deep threat. Traquan Smith was the next best receiver last year behind Thomas. There was good kind of buzz about him kind of in preseason last year. He's now kind of a year older, a year more experienced. Maybe he can be a decent threat for the team moving forward.
Yeah. No, I'm predicting just more of the same for the team this year. So let's move on to the Falcons. Devontae Freeman is the lead running back now with Coleman. Tevin Coleman is no longer there. Ito Smith is there to sort of run it in at the end as a sort of a big running back, but Devontae Freeman, he needs a big year, doesn't he?
It was, and it's a bit of a risk getting rid of Tevin Coleman, if you
Yeah.
ask me, because Devontae Freeman's coming back off quite a nasty injury last year. If he is fit, fine, great. That's a good running back to have in your team. And Ito Smith had some good moments last year as well. But it's a big if for a running back coming back from a serious injury.
Yeah. I mean, he is class, but there is a question mark hanging over him. I mean, for them, they've got players coming back on defence that Yeah,
their defence was decimated last year.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of the wanky stats is they were 28th in yards conceded last year, and they've got players coming back that for one, they're going to have a secondary. They didn't have one last year.
Yeah. They also bring back Deion Jones, the linebacker, who's one of the better linebackers in the league.
Yeah, no, it's all it's good news for them.
I think the interesting thing with the Falcons is that Dan Quinn got rid of both the coordinators, offensive and defensive. Now Steve Sarkisian came for a lot of slack.
Yeah,
through the kind of 2 seasons that he was there whilst taking over from Shanahan, and he didn't get the best out of Julio Jones. He got a lot of yards, but when you've got a weapon like that, he needs to have more production.
Yeah.
So Dirk Cutter has come in as the offensive coordinator. He was previously head coach at the Bucs. He's got a lot of experience, but there's no defensive coordinator. So Dan Quinn was the defensive coordinator at the Seahawks before he took over the Falcons. He's now going to be running the defense. So with the glory he had with the Seahawks, you'd expect good things. But can he do both head coach and run the defense?
It is something hanging over the team this year, and if not, I mean, he is in trouble. He could be in trouble if he's not.
I think he is,
because they've had 2 down years since the second half of the Super Bowl.
It's not the second half; it's the fourth quarter.
Yeah, God.
And you got to the playoffs the following year, but
they were awful.
They were awful, and then last year they was okay. Yes, they did have a lot of injuries, but it's kind of no excuse. They have strength for the offensive line in the preseason. Recognizing Matt Ryan's still a good quarterback, but he's getting older. They've drafted Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry, the right tackle. So they've reinforced the offensive line, which was an issue last year. They have got those weapons back. They've still got 2 good receivers. We spoke about Beckham and Landry earlier, alongside Thielen and Diggs. Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley are 2 good receivers. Ridley had a great rookie season. Probably one of the best route runners in the league. And they've also got Mohamed Sanu as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, if they can get some new schemes, freshen up that offense. They have the quarterback there and the receivers to really make something. So it's just, can they do it? Because they've had 2 years of just being stodgy.
Yeah, middling.
Yeah, it's just, I can't even think of a good word for it, but yeah, they're just awful, really. Schedule-wise, they've got a tough start. They go Vikings, Eagles, Colts, Tetons, and then Texans. So
there's a good possibility they could lose the first 3 games.
First 3 games, yeah. They do have a better sort of end. So they've got Bucks, Saints, Panthers, 49ers, Jags, Bucks. So they finish easier than they start. So it isn't all over if they do find themselves 2-3 after 5 games. But yeah, shall we move on to Carolina?
Oh, Carolina. It's the only time I'm ever going to sing, and that was barely singing.
Yeah. So Cam seems to be the big story, as
it's always going to be the big story in Carolina. He's the heartbeat of that team. I'm not sure if you've watched the All or Nothing on Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
only goes to show how important he is to the team. As soon as he started to get injured last year, it was pretty much when the season fell apart.
Yeah, but it's strange because the more the season went on, the better McCaffrey became, and the worse the team were.
Yeah.
So if they can get some players around him, DJ Moore is there, but the other who's got potential. They've got Chris Hogan there as someone big for Cam to overthrow.
Got a lot of pace on the offense.
Yeah.
Like both DJ Moore, Samuel Curtis, Christian McCaffrey are really quick players. So I think they're looking more, and they're not kind of deep threats. I think they're looking more to those short passes and then to get the yards after the catch. So maybe there's less pressure on Cam kind of launching the ball to ease back on his shoulder. Apparently he's got a new throwing motion, which looks very weird. It looks very different if you compare it to him of previous years. So maybe that will help. But yeah, this season is all about, the beginning of the season is all about if Cam Newton comes back fully fit.
Yeah. I hope so. Watching like a 6'2" massive guy run at people is insanely fun. And, when you've got as well McCaffrey as well, looking fully juiced for the new year. He
not taking anything.
He's just been on his vegetables, saying his prayers. But yeah, as well, Greg Olsen, still going about. He won't last the season. But
this is the problem. Like, he's such an important part of that offense, especially for Cam. They've got a connection. I would have liked to see them invest a bit more at tight end and bring in either a young tight end to learn off of Olsen and eventually take over, or at least a decent backup. Ian Thomas is the next best tight end, and it's leaving a bit to be desired.
Yeah.
Greg Olsen's not had a season for a good few years where he's played all 16 games.
No, on defense, Kuechly is. Once again, he's one of the best linebackers in the business.
So he's definitely one of the top 2 linebackers in the league when he's fit.
When he's fit, he is.
It's like
a walking concussion waiting to happen.
He's the Cam Newton of the defense. Everything goes through him. He's the leader of the defense. He's the best player on that defense. And if he can stay fit, he's a joy to watch at linebacker because he hurtles around the field. He's such an intelligent player. If he can stay fit, along with some of the other players that they brought in, this is actually a good defense. They brought in Gerald McCoy.
Yeah.
I don't know why the Bucks let him go because he's a good player, but the Bucks' loss is the Panthers' gain. And then they drafted Brian Burns, who won an edge rusher who has, I think when he made his debut in the preseason in week 1, got 2 sacks.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
They also signed Eric Reed to a long-term contract. Again, a good safety. Yes, he comes with a bit of controversy, but he's a good player.
Oh, yeah, superb. They should be better. I just don't think they will be.
It just comes down to the injuries, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If they can keep Cam Newton fit, if they can keep Luke Kuechly fit, they've got the weapons around them, and they seem to have a game plan in terms of those receivers. I don't think you need those big receivers like Benjamin or Funchess.
Yeah. Well, they were never
really
that good.
Productive.
Yeah. No. So maybe moving to quicker, more mobile. I think it can't be any worse anyway.
Yeah. A name to watch. They drafted Elijah Holyfield, who is a running back and is the son of Evander Holyfield.
Nice.
So I don't know if he's any good, but there you go. Nice little bit of a
packs a punch.
Jesus.
Don't shake your head, Gary. We heard your Rudolph one.
Yeah, we all heard that.
But yeah, let's move on to the final team here, the Bucks. 5-11 last year, and a change of head coach. No change at quarterback,
Nope.
despite what some people hoped for. One of them isn't here right now, but
Conspicuous by his absence.
yeah, they have re-signed the GM and hidden it in the news to do when they did so, which I think just strengthens the fact that Jameis is going to get a deal here there.
Yeah,
So
I don't mind the re-signing of the GM. I think you look at some of the talent on this team, and it's not terrible. I mean, it's
No.
not the Bengals like we had last week. And I think kind of tempting Bruce Arians out of retirement and pairing him with a quarterback like Jameis Winston is almost perfect. So Arians has got a good track history of working with quarterbacks that have got a big arm, and Jameis Winston's got a decent arm.
yeah,
If you can eradicate the mistakes, the interceptions, the slight attitude I think he has that he thinks he's better than he's kind of proved to be. He kind of, I look at him, he kind of almost like struts around. Did you watch Hard Knocks last year?
Yeah.
He kind of struts around trying to almost impersonate what Cam Newton does.
yeah.
Without the play or the
He's Cam Light, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. I think he almost needs to take that away, get back to basics. He's got good receivers around him. Mike Evans is again a top receiver.
Top 10.
He'll be one of the first 5 receivers taken in most fantasy drafts.
Yeah.
The tight end, who is it? OJ Howard.
He's sort of bromance with Cameron Brate. They've got a connection as well.
Yeah.
So, there was as well last year. He was distracted at the start by being banned for. Was that the Uber incident? Filling up an Uber driver.
And then Fitzpatrick came in and did what Fitzpatrick did.
I mean,
the big question I think on this team is at running back.
Yeah, Ronald Jones, Peyton Barber.
Terrible.
They were.
If Peyton Barber's number 1 on the depth chart for running backs, I think that's an issue.
Yeah.
They need to. Ronald Jones was a second-round pick in 2018. I don't think he played that much last year. When he did play, he kind of had an issue with drops. So they need to get more play out of him.
Yeah, he had 23 carries last year, 44 yards and a touchdown. So it wasn't the most productive of years.
It was not. The move I do like though is that they brought in Todd Bowles as the defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
There's experience there. He was the Jets head coach for a long time. Before that, he'd worked with Arians as the Cardinals defensive coordinator, so they've worked together. And both the Cardinals team and that Jets team, to an extent, had good defenses. Yeah. And they've kind of improved it further by drafting Devin White, the linebacker at LSU. Looks a heck of a player. The defense could be better. They've also signed Ndamukong Suh as well.
Exactly, yeah. To add to that line with I mean, Vita Vea as well. There's some
big
talent.
Big talent on that offensive, defensive line. Sorry.
It's just getting them to perform. But we'll see. So should we have a prediction for the division?
I think top and bottom are easy.
Yep.
Because I think it's the Saints top, the Bucks bottom.
Yep. I'm going to say the Saints. They win less than last year, just because.
I think the two other teams have improved. I think the
Yeah.
Falcons and Panthers have both got better, but I think that then makes it harder for them both to have good records.
Yeah.
So I think if you could see them, you could feasibly see them tying and both being on 8-8, which would be an improvement on last year, but not a massive one. But equally, this could be one of those divisions where you do get two wild card coming out of the same division.
Yeah. I can't split the two. So yeah.
I'm going to go Panthers above Falcons. Just because
I'm going to go Falcons above Panthers.
Just to be different.
And so I can have some controversy. We're all getting on very well. Well, let's leave it there, and we'll go now to the NFC West.
Right, and Gary, NFC West.
Let's
the
do this.
best for last.
I know. We save it till it's late and until we have to have this argument. So let's just.
Right, let's get it over with. Super Bowl attendees. I'm not sure they actually played because
No, they bottled it.
they totally bottled it. The LA Rams finished last year 13-3.
Did it just come a year too early? Do you think? Were they ready? Did they think they were going to lose?
I think that's a fair point because they look like kind of deers caught in their headlights.
Yeah, I just wonder if actually they just weren't quite mature enough for it yet.
I think one of the biggest issues was the Todd Gurley injury. Like before he was injured, that offense ran through Todd Gurley. People had to defend against him, so they stacked the box, gave Jared Goff more time when he passed it, and it made sure that receivers were only kind of one-on-one, if not. So, and Sean McVay is a good offensive coordinator. He can draw up a good scheme, and he can ensure that receivers get open, which makes it easier for Jared Goff. Without Gurley, yes, they had CJ Anderson, but he's not a threat like Gurley is. Without him, the defenses found this team out very easily, and a team like New England with Belichick coaching it, they're going to find them out pretty easily.
Yep.
So I think kind of the big question is Todd Gurley going to be fit for the next year?
Well, they're saying he's fit, aren't they? They're saying he's been active in the pre-season. So, he wasn't out at the end of the season, was he? He was managing an injury, which is slightly different. And he is a running back that's played a lot of snaps over the last kind of 2 to 3 years. So, I would say he's fit. I think he's going to play. Are they going to try and manage his workload better? Yes. Yeah. Are they going to try and take him out of games in the third, fourth quarter when they're well ahead? Yes. Are they going to try and keep him fresher for the postseason? Yes.
Yeah.
And is that a little bit of naivety last year, thinking that you need to just keep playing Gurley when you might be 15 points cleared? Just take him out of the game for
I completely agree. There were a lot of games where they had substantial leads, where they could afford to rest him and play more CJ Anderson or play more running back Malcolm Brown, who's now the kind of the backup running back. I think you're absolutely right. I think they need to manage that situation, use him when it's important to use him when you need your best players on the field. But then if you don't need him, have a good backup. We're seeing more and more teams now use running backs by committee. I'd like to see the Rams do that a bit more.
Yeah, I just think they need to get into the position where they're ahead in the game and they're managing the game, and then you can take Gurley out, can't you? I think you just can't expect him to go through that much workload year after year after year. So I think that'll be the issue. I think that Super Bowl hangover, always gets talked about, doesn't it, from the teams that lose?
Yeah,
I'm not so sure. They're quite youthful. They're quite energetic. I don't think they think it was their only chance. So I don't know that that'll be the case. I think they just might be hungrier, if I'm honest. I think they probably overachieved where they thought they would get to last year, and now potentially they might have a bit more self-belief. Strangely, after losing the Super Bowl, they still might have a bit more self-belief. I know they weren't really in that Super Bowl, but they still got there. They still sort of beat the Saints. Sort of.
I mean, they kept up with the Saints. Okay, yes, it was a dubious call, but you've still got to be in the game. So fair enough. Cooper Kupp is back from injury. He was one of Goff's favourite targets last year. How important is that to kind of the continuing development of Goff?
I think it's quite important. I think Kupp and Woods give you good options all of the time, and then Gurley for a short pass, and it allows Brandon Cooks to get free a bit more often because actually you just can't double coverage all three of those wide receivers, can you? So sometimes Cook is going to go deep and he's going to be open. That's just reality.
I think Kupp kind of is so reliable. He's got great hands. It's very rare that passes are thrown in his general direction that he doesn't have a very good chance of snagging out the air. I think it's important for Goff to have trust in his receivers. I'm not sure he has it with Woods, even though he does stack up some good yards. And Cooks, I think, with another year in that scheme, I think he could be quite an interesting player to watch this year.
He doesn't tend to stay around long, though, does he?
No.
1 to 2 years. Then teams feel like they're done with him.
They seem to get rid of him.
Yeah. For amount of production, a lot of Hollywood money, but
they're few and far between.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's. But I still think good receiving core. Goff's he's a decent quarterback. I think I don't think he's reached his peak yet either.
No,
I think he's a
not.
couple of years away from that. So I think they're still building.
I think it's an interesting time for him as well because he's going to start coming up to that point where they're going to be discussing whether they give him a long-term contract. He's not in that kind of, for me, not in that kind of Andrew Luck, Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Garoppolo. But seriously, he's not I wouldn't say he's a top 10 quarterback yet.
I guarantee you he gets paid and he stays if they can afford it. That's the question.
I think that's the question. And they've got, there's a lot of talent on defense as well. They've probably got the best defensive player in the league in Aaron Donald, who's getting paid a lot.
Definitely got the best player.
They're
potentially the best player in the entire league.
Yeah. If the NFL gave, player of the year to defensive players, which they just generally don't, I think Aaron Donald should win it. They re-upped Dante Fowler, so he's there for another year. Michael Brockers is another good defensive end. So, yes, they've lost Sue, but that defensive line is still good. They brought in Eric Weddle as well, and then they drafted Taylor Rapp as safety. So, interesting to see, Rapp was highly thought of in the draft. Those two working together, master and apprentice kind of scenario could be quite interesting. And they've still got Peters and Aqib Talib as starting cornerback. So, it's still a fearsome defense.
Yeah, no, they're very strong. They're very strong. I hate to say it. Yeah. Okay, right. Seahawks next. Let's talk about the next lot.
Let's make this one quick.
Well, it's just
because we
just going to depress
like
me
about this.
Right, the Seahawks. So they're just
every year we go into the NFC West about the Seahawks as what have they done in the off season? They've lost this player, that player. They just don't look good. They haven't restocked, and every year they seem to do well again.
Well, I think they had a good year last year. I think a lot of people underestimated them, probably us as well. We hoped they would be worse than they were. They're a very stable franchise. They've had a mantra and a coach for a long time. They haven't had a lot of change there. So I think they just they can bring people into their culture and they have a way of playing. So the personnel can change, but the mantra and the culture stays the same. That often works well in large organisations. So I think that's one of the key things that works. I think when the head changes in Seattle is when you'll see a real drop off and when you'll see the end of that kind of dynasty that's been there for the last 10 years.
The oldest head coach in the NFL, has he got long left, I think?
Another 3 years maybe. But I think they've done some okay stuff. I think they needed something else at wide receiver. I think Tyler Lockett had a good year last year. I think he is a proper wide receiver number one. I think he'll do well again this year. DK Metcalf, lots of hype. Lots of hype.
Can't run around the corner, but he can run in a straight line very fast.
I get that, but there's a lot of players that have been very successful in the NFL doing that. If they're strong enough and big enough to still,
he's a big guy as well.
I didn't see Gronk being particularly nimble when he in the Miami Miracle last year. So, it just depends how they're going to use him, doesn't it? I think Red zone we know has been a problem for them. I think that's a good signing for them. I think they drafted well. I think running backs improved. They had some drop off after Lynch left. They kind of didn't know what to do. I think Chris Carson last year had a much better year. And Penny is coming through. I'm not sure he's got enough Chris Carson place yet, but I think
what we were saying on the Rams. I think this is definitely going to be one of those running backs by committee. Yes, he's listed as the number one on the depth chart, but I think you see plenty of Rashad Penny, plenty of McKissick, and plenty of CJ Precise. As an experienced player, he's been around a bit. Penny's young. They drafted him in the first round last year, which was a surprise to many. But they obviously
he went early, much earlier.
Yeah. Well, I think most people had him pegged for end of the second, top of the third, most, and he shocked many. They shocked them by taking them in the first. I'm always worried about the offensive line in Seattle, especially considering. Okay, yes, Russell Wilson's great, probably the best scrambling quarterback in the league at the moment. He's had issues with injuries previously. He's played through them.
He didn't get hit as many times last year, though, did he?
He was much better last year. But he's still a year older. How long can he keep scrambling? A look at the offensive line at guard position. Mike Petty is listed at number one.
Is he still around?
Still around. Ex-49er, ex-Cardinal, and he's now at the Seahawks. Surely he'll be at the Rams soon as well.
I don't think so. I think he might be dreaming about going to the Rams.
But generally, there's not a lot. There's no big, good names on there that a quarterback would feel safe in. So that worries me. On defense, they've lost Earl Thomas, of course. He's gone. That's a big leader that's now gone from the defense.
But again, this is what I'm talking about. They didn't lose anybody. They've lost 1 to 2 every year for the last 4 years now, and they've just kind of dropped 2 out, brought 2 younger ones in,
so
kept the Legion of Boom, not destroyed it. Just gone, well, when you get a bit too big for your boots and you start to decline because you're getting a bit older, then thank you, but see you later.
Yeah, I completely agree.
They're very good at moving them on.
The one exception to that is Bobby Wagner, who they've kept, and rightly so, because along with Kuechly, who we spoke about earlier, he's one of the best linebackers in the league. And I think he is to the defense what Russell Wilson is to the offense. He's that leader, and everything kind of works around him. Yeah.
And I think, for the Seahawks, what is still in their favour is, for me, I think they've still got 4 divisional games most years at the moment where they are going to be ticking off a definite win.
Yeah,
which helps those overall numbers, doesn't it? When you've got 4 divisional games that
and
you're
Seattle is such a hard place to go. Anyone coming into that stadium with the amount of noise they're able to generate, and yes, they've still got a good defense. As 8 home games where they're going to be competitive in each and every single one of those games. There's no one I think that's going to blow them out in Seattle.
No. Okay. Right. Who wants to go first?
Well, you're going to be the most negative about the 49ers. So.
Well, you say negative. I say realistic. It's not been great, has it?
It's not been the best to start. So I think you said it 2 weeks ago. Injuries have been an issue for the 49ers the last 2 years. They drafted Nick Bosa number 1, which I think he was the best player in the draft.
I agree. I would have taken him. Yep.
He does have injury histories, as does his brother.
He's already injured already, isn't he?
He's injured already. He's going to miss the whole of pre-season. I wouldn't be surprised if he missed 1 or 2 games.
He will not play in week 1. I guarantee you he won't play in week 1.
They also signed, a couple of good veteran players.
Injured.
Quan Alexander. Injured.
I wasn't so convinced by Quan Alexander. You're really keen on that one.
I like that signing. But anyway, he's been injured. He's going to make his debut in the 3rd preseason game. Jason Verrett, who I thought was really good at Chargers, but again, there's injury history there. What they have...
Ford, injured.
D Ford. That situation needs managing, but yeah.
He's injured.
Yep.
What did I describe the 49ers season as?
I think
Injuries, sadness.
What they have... Just love the saddest bit. What they have done is at the end of the season, at least they recognise the fact that injuries were an issue. They fired their athletic trainer, they fired the strength coach, and they've replaced the whole department. So I'm hoping that injuries won't be as big a problem, but the start has been
I suppose
bad.
the concern for me is the continuity of this organisation and the team playing together. Because how are they growing? How are they evolving? Because Jimmy G throws a load of interceptions in pre-season. Oh, stop playing. Yeah, throws an interception and
Do you know he had a
zero quarterback rating. Yeah.
Do you know if you threw, I think you get a quarterback rating, I think about 35, 32, if you just threw lots of passes and they were all incomplete without an interception.
It's reassuring, isn't it? But
Yeah.
my point is, where are they evolving and growing this into a team? Yeah, where are they taking the pieces of Jimmy G, McKinnon, Tevin Coleman? Where are Dante Pettis? Brader? Where are they evolving this into a unit that delivers something on offense?
I think this season is make or break for both Shanahan and Lynch at GM because
I think Shanahan's gone.
No, I think if it's a good season,
I think him and Patricia are under the most pressure.
yeah, definitely. If it's a good season and they play well, they don't have to win a ton of games, but at least play well and get to 8-8. I think is a minimum.
You think they're going to get to 8 wins?
I didn't say that. I just said they have to get to 8-8 as a minimum.
Wow.
I think that would be classed as a good season.
How much of it do we think is just PR though? Because we hear so much of this, Debo Samuels look good.
He has
You've
looked
got,
good, to be fair.
but there's loads of them. We've got Marquise Goodwin looked good. All these different players over the last couple of years. Oh, they look great. Brader looks great. They're really keen on this 4th round running back, etc., etc., etc. And then we still end up 4-12, and I still just think.
I think you're
brilliant.
right. I think you're right. There is a lot of hype around this team at the moment. I think there's a number of big writers who have got them penned for a playoff place, providing they all have the caveat if they stay fit.
I think if you stay fit, if you can get the fans to the stadium, yeah, because
more buses.
Well, yeah, but it's not. The bus journey takes bloody forever. The bus journey and the trains, it's a nightmare. Yeah, so the games are not necessarily sold out. Yeah, the move to San Jose hasn't necessarily been hugely successful.
That's coincided with a downturn
in form at the same time. I don't really look at Shanahan. I don't see leadership in Shanahan. I don't see that same spark that I see in McVay in Shanahan. I see this kid who's just been playing video games in his garage or something. I just don't see it. I just don't want to follow the guy. I don't get it myself.
Well, he's not done anything. I don't think he's proven anything. I mean, the one thing I can point to is the fact that Nick Mullins played well last year and they won some games with him. Now, to win some games with Nick Mullins as your quarterback...
We play in a league with the Cardinals and we won 4 games.
Yeah, I'm not denying they're being terrible.
That's all I'm saying. And didn't we lose one to the Cardinals?
Probably. Yeah, we did.
We did. Yeah, that's how pony we were.
I think the positives that I take out of this is that on paper, and if you take away all the injuries, the team looks good. I think the defensive line has got a number of first-round picks now, and it's got D Ford on it.
How many picks have we spent on this defense to lose 12 games last year?
Just on the defensive line.
In the last 4 years.
4, I think, on his line. Eric Armstead, now Nick Bosa.
And
He's gone.
He has. Went to the Skins. Beating up his girlfriend, Ruben Foster.
Yeah.
I mean, the defense in total. How many first, second round picks have we used in the last 4 years?
I'm not denying
tons.
that.
Tons. We lost 12 games.
I think that's what I'm saying. This is a make or break season for them. If it doesn't work this season, I think they've.
I'm not even buying a shirt this year.
Thank God. I know that Shanahan and Lynch are going to look at this. Have got 6-year contracts. If this season doesn't work, I think there's going to be changes.
Well, we will speak about this halfway through the season, if not before.
I feel that you might be right.
But, yeah, I normally am. Okay, right. So on to the Cardinals. Right. Take us away, Jim.
So, new coach. Another offensive-minded coach. Like Paul said, I think he once had coffee with Sean McVay. So, that instantly qualifies him to be an NFL head coach. They drafted a quarterback in the first round for the second year in a row. Slightly more controversial this year in that Kyler Murray was that quarterback. He's
tiny,
very small. Like even his coach is bigger than him.
Yeah,
his coach
tiny,
isn't
yeah.
the biggest of guys. He's 5'10".
If he's on tiptoes,
most.
maybe. Yeah.
But when you watch him playing for Oklahoma, he did play very well. We're not comparing them to other players, but he has got that scrambling ability. He's got genuine pace when he runs.
Do they just think they've got the new Mahomes?
Yeah, I think they do, because he can throw the ball as well. Like his pass is very accurate. It's very quick. The commentators will say that the ball jumps out of his hand, whatever that means, but I think it means that's good.
Who's he throwing it to?
Well, that's the question. I think we're going to see more from Christian Kirk this year. Larry Fitzgerald is obviously still there, but
With a crutch.
with a crutch, he's still struggling on. I thought last year would be his last year. And they got Kevin White, because
That's Panthers.
no, Kevin White, who was at the Bears, and
Oh, the Bears.
played like maybe half a game
Right,
each year
okay.
and got injured. So it's not great. They drafted Andy Isabella and Hakeem Butler. So there's a lot of wide receivers on this roster. So they're not going to keep them all, but there's a lot of competition outside Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk. You would say that the rest of those positions are up for grabs.
Yeah, no, definitely. The offense was terrible, wasn't it? Let's be honest. It was awful last year.
The offensive line was horrible.
It was just wasn't a pleasant place to be, was it?
No. And I think you saw that in the production that David Johnson didn't have. Like, let's bear in mind, Johnson was at one point, considered one of the top 5 running backs in the league. No one's really talking about him anymore.
Do you know what? I've done a couple of mock drafts already, and his stock is quite high this year. Whether it's the effect of Murray or whether people just think he's fit this year, I don't know. But his stock is much higher than it's been for probably the last 2 years since he had that season where he got injured in like the first 10 minutes of the season or whatever. It seems to be the first year where there is a little bit more faith back in David Johnson.
Yeah,
this
I
year.
think the only kind of concern for him, especially when it comes to fantasy, is that the new coach Cliff Kingsbury runs what they call an air raid system, where there's going to be a lot of passing. You're going to see a lot of offensive lineups with just David Johnson and probably 4 wide receivers. Tight end doesn't really feature in Cliff Kingsbury's scheme, but they have actually got 2 vaguely all right tight ends. So we'll see what happens. I think the offensive line is not as big an issue when you've got Kyler Murray as it perhaps was when you had Josh Rosen, because Murray has got that ability to scramble and get away from what is going to be a lot of pressure coming up the middle.
David
and down the
Johnson's only
sides.
27, as well.
Yeah, I know.
He's
He's
been
still-
around ages, but he is only
He's not really been
27.
around that long. It's only 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5
isn't it?
years.
I think kind of like because he had that year out injured, and then because he had a bad year last year because it was a bad team.
Bad team, yeah.
He's kind of fallen out of the reckoning. For all the work that they've done,
His bad year last year was still 940 yards and 7 touchdowns.
yeah,
I'm just saying.
You consider like he was probably one of those running backs that you'd think, okay, he stands a good chance of getting to that 1,500, 2,000 yard mark in his prime a few years ago.
Yeah.
For all the work on the offense, the defense, there's been a few additions. Terrell Suggs come in. He's going to be a veteran. The biggest issue for the defense is going to be Patrick Peterson, who is suspended for the first 6 games.
And until he throws another hissy fit about something.
He's been angling for a trade away from the Cardinals for some time now, so we'll see what happens there. They brought in Byron Murphy at cornerback. Good prospect, but he's not Patrick Peterson, who's on his day one of the best cornerbacks in the league.
So we've got a pretty bad team from last year with an unknown head coach straight out of college.
And he wasn't that good in college.
He wasn't that
either.
good in college. And
record's
an
not brilliant.
unknown small quarterback. It could work a bit, or it could just be more of the same. It could just be... I think he gets this year, doesn't he?
I think he'd definitely get the year, just because they've
invested in the
sacked
quarterback as well.
Yeah, they sacked the coach last year after 1 year. They sacked the quarterback last year after 1 year. I think they need a bit of stability. They need to give him a chance. Also, think Kyler Murray's also got that baseball background. If they suddenly drop him, or it even looks like drop him, he could just throw
go.
his toys out the pram and just go. So there's a risk there. I think they'll have a couple of years. I think they'll get. They need a year to strengthen both the offensive line and defensive line. It's either going to work brilliantly and they'll get 7-8 wins, or it's another.
I think if they get to 4 or 5, that's good progress.
Good progress, yeah.
So the division then. So for me, it's really. So there's only actually one question. So I think the order is pretty much set. Rams, Seahawks, Niners, Cardinals. It's whether the Seahawks will have enough to get a wild card.
I think
in a tough NFC.
Yeah, I think this could be the year that they don't.
There's got to be one year that they don't quite sneak in.
Yeah, I just think there's not enough. There's not enough.
We ran them close twice last year.
Yeah,
the Niners, home and away.
Yeah, we weren't good.
And we weren't good. If I just get a feeling they could lose one more game than they did last year, and maybe miss the playoffs.
They've lost too many players this time. I completely appreciate your point around that culture, and that they get rid of players who either get bored or don't appreciate the coach's stories anymore. But I just think they've lost too many players and not replaced them with enough quality.
So we both agree: Rams, Seahawks, Niners, Cardinals. Seahawks do not make the playoffs.
Yep, I'm good with that.
Okay, that's the NFC and AFC now done. We've done both conferences. We'll be back next week when we look forward to the start of the new season as well as our fantasy drafts. So join us then. Thanks. Bye.